Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us here at Japan House London for today's special event, which explores Wajima's renowned urushi lacquer industry and the challenges it now faces. In addition to our audience here in the hall, today we are also live streaming on Zoom and across social media, so a warm welcome to everybody joining us online. Please note that the event is being recorded and the recording will be made available on our YouTube after the event. Located on Japan's Noto Peninsula, Wajima has been an acclaimed center for urushi production for generations. Its lacquerware, known as Wajima Nuri, is nationally recognized as an important intangible cultural property. The region has suffered two major natural disasters in recent times, a devastating earthquake on New Year's Day and the more recent severe flooding in September. These events have greatly impacted Wajima's community and its craftspeople, leaving the future of this historic industry uncertain. Today, as part of Asian Art in London, we are honored to be joined by a distinguished panel of experts and craftspeople. First, we will hear from Simon Pilling, Director at Asian Art in London, who will share a few words on this event and its place within Asian Art in London's program this year. We will then hear from Yamada Masami, Curator in the Victoria and Albert Museum's Asian department, who will outline the challenges currently facing Wajima. Following her presentation, Yamada-san will lead a discussion with four master urushi artists who will join us online from Japan: Kamata Katsuji, Wakamiya Takashi, Shibayama Yoshinori, and Murose Tomoya. Together, they'll share insights into their personal experiences and their perspectives on Wajima Nuri. We will then open the floor for questions. And for those of you on Zoom, you can submit your questions using the Zoom Q&A function. Now to begin, please join me in welcoming Simon Pilling.
Thank you, Julianne, and good afternoon. Thank you for coming. As Julianne said, I am the director of Asian Art in London, but I'm also a passionate advocate for the cultural importance of Japanese lacquer, which is the speciality of what I show when I exhibit works. Asian Art in London was founded over 25 years ago now for the sole purpose of promoting London as a centre of excellence for Asian arts. And that's all the arts of Asia, not just Japan, of course. And we are in the middle of that event at the moment. You go into the centre of town, you will find exhibitions promoting all sorts of aspects of the arts of Asia. And you'll find over on that table there this particular brochure, which shows what is happening in Sotheby's at the moment, where I, along with 11 other dealers, are showing works. My own show is primarily lacquer and certainly includes a number of works from the Wajima artists. So we work also in partnership with the major UK museums, and I'm delighted that we're working today in partnership with Japan House. It's a real privilege to be here today in front of you. My own passion for lacquer dates back about 50 years, in fact, which is a terrible admission to make. But I visit Japan regularly to source works and to meet artists who are working there. And my work spans all the way from the Edo period through to contemporary. But it was working with contemporary artists that first took me to Wajima 15 years ago, specifically to meet one of today's speakers, Wakamiya Takashi, leader of the Ikoju Makie studio. It was a real privilege and delight to meet this team of craftsmen and to learn how the lacquer industry in Wajima functions, and to enjoy his hospitality, which most days would usually end in a dinner and karaoke, which I am a large fan of, but I know not everybody is. So it was particularly devastating for me to hear what happened on New Year's Day this year, and to see, quite unbelievably, what happened to the community fires that came after the earthquake, and we'll hear more about this later. So although Wajima is one of 30 lacquer producing centers in Japan, I learned that it's unique in its social structure, insofar as rather than operating as a series of independent workshops, the entire city actually functions as one single integrated studio. This means that traditionally, the system centered around a person called the Nushiya. The Nushiya sort of was the orchestrator, the conductor of the whole process, that he would be working with independent artisans who all were specialized in a particular aspect of the production of lacquer. As I'm sure you know, it is a multi-task procedure to make a piece of lacquer, all the way from normally the wooden core through to preparing that wood, to then preparing it for the lacquer, and finally putting a surface finish on it. And each of these is a skill. And the way that Wajima works is that it's those separate craftsmen who have those skills who come together, orchestrated under one leader quite often. In the West, of course, we're more familiar with a piece of work being done by a single artist, signed by that single artist. That is not what we are seeing here. In the case of Wakamiya-san, he has set up this studio. He never signs his work at all because he wouldn't say it was his work. It's the work of a group. And this is really why what has happened this year has been so destructive to Wajima. It puts the whole functioning of that system into jeopardy. You cannot have groups in the same area all working together. As we know, lacquer-coated utensils have been important to Japan's society for many centuries. And Wajima was leading in that. But recently, before the end of the 20th century, the number of artisans was reducing in Wajima because primarily everyday lacquer as a use for food materials was no longer as popular as it had been. It was a move away from it. So whereas there had been 3,000 artisans up until that sort of time working, by the time of the earthquake, this had come down to just 1,000 craftsmen. And many of the artists there were having to turn their minds already to producing different sorts of work, probably higher quality or higher value pieces that might be considered artworks as opposed to everyday tableware. The evacuation caused the earthquake caused the evacuation of many artisans away from Wajima, as we'll hear later today. The government has stepped in to try and create temporary studios to replace what has been lost, and to date they have produced about 50 of these, but then that in itself was undermined by the flooding that came, as we heard, a few months ago. So what we'll be hearing today is a discussion in the industry, taking stock of Wajima's current situation and really where the community goes from here in the face of this devastating natural event. So thank you, and I do hope you come and visit us in Sotheby's and enjoy the exhibitions we've got on. They're on till Monday, I would look forward to welcoming you to the galleries. But now I will hand you over to Masami, who will lead the discussion with the artisans. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Simon, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Masami Yamada. I'm curator of Japanese art at the Victorian and Albert Museum. 11 months have passed since the magnitude 7.6 earthquake struck the Noto Peninsula on New Year's Day. As Simon highlighted in his speech, Wajima is a key lacquer production center in Japan. My current research focuses on contemporary Japanese lacquer, and I visited Wajima most recently in June this year. Today, we are privileged to welcome 4 remarkable lacquer artists, each deeply connected to Wajima. They will share their experiences from the past year and their visions for the future. In this short introductory talk I'm giving, I will begin by outlining Wajima's location and the impact of recent natural disasters. And then I will explore why Wajima Lacquerware is so important to Japan and its broader lacquer industry. So let's begin with its location. Wajima is located on the northern coast of the Noto Peninsula in Ishikawa Prefecture. It is the largest city in that region with a population of about 21,000. Surrounded by mountains, forests, and the sea, Wajima's economy has traditionally thrived on fishing, farming, tourism, and of course, lacquerware production. It is important to note here that city's remote location. Kanazawa, the prefectural capital, is about 2 hours away by car, and there is no train line connecting the two cities. This inaccessibility has significantly delayed recovery efforts after this year's earthquake. The local lacquer industry was well established by the late 17th and early 18th centuries. Today, Wajima Lacquerware is celebrated for its exceptional durability and refined craftsmanship. Commonly produced as tableware, products are often decorated with luxurious gold makie lacquer decoration, where intricate designs are created by sprinkling fine gold powder, as illustrated in the sake cups displayed here on the slide. Among many traditional crafts in Ishikawa Prefecture, Wajima Lacquerware is a particularly notable heritage, and in 1977, the Wajima Lacquerware Preservation Society was officially designated as an important intangible cultural heritage by the Japanese government. The epicenter of the Noto earthquake on the New Year's Day was located 18 miles northeast of Wajima. In Japan, the New Year holiday is the time when people return to their hometowns to celebrate with family and close relatives, much like Christmas in Europe. So tragically, this earthquake shattered the peaceful afternoon of New Year's Day. And in Wajima alone, over 2,200 houses completely collapsed, as you can see in these pictures, and more than 160 lives were lost due to the earthquake and the subsequent fires. What really transformed Wajima into an unrecognizable state was the fire that erupted in the city center within just 10 minutes of the earthquake. It is believed to have been sparked by damaged electrical wiring. Local firefighters faced significant challenges in extinguishing the blaze due to a water shortage caused by the earthquake. It took over 14 hours to bring the fire under control. As a result, more than 200 buildings, including shops, homes, lacquer artisan studios, and the famous local morning market, which was popular among tourists, were reduced to ashes. While this was certainly not the first major earthquake to strike this region, the level of devastation caused by this year's earthquake has been the worst in local history. While Wajima still has a significant number of debris, there's been remarkable progress since the earthquake in the past year. The number of people living in evacuation shelters had dropped from over 13,000 to just 85 by early September, thanks to the construction of temporary housing. These are pictures I took during my visit to Wajima in June this year. About 3,000 of these temporary houses have been built across the city in 45 different locations, utilizing available land near the coast and even parking lots. In addition, the Japanese government has committed to building temporary studios for local lacquer artisans in order to enable them to continue their craft and preserve the important tradition. Nearly 50 of these studios are now complete, as Simon also mentioned, and the local food industry was just beginning to reopen over the summer. However, on September 21st, a once in 100 years heavy rainstorm struck the Noto Peninsula, causing significant setbacks to the recovery efforts that had just begun to take shape this summer. In these pictures provided by Wakamiya Takashi, one of today's speakers, you can see the buildings have submerged in water. Over 600 buildings in Wajima sustained severe damage from this rainstorm, including many lacquer workshops. The majority of temporary houses and studios built in the city center were also affected by flooding, and this obviously forced residents to return to evacuation shelters. While the Wajima city center suffered from flooding, the areas near the mountains faced deadly landslides. These pictures were provided by Kamata Katsuji, who will be joining us as the first guest speaker after this talk. This is the building Kamata-san owns, and it serves as a living space for young artisans assisting with his lacquerware production. Fortunately, nobody was injured in the landslide, but fallen trees smashed through the walls, as you can see in these pictures, making the building unlivable. Wajima Lacquerware comes in many different forms, but it is best known for its functional tableware. Its most remarkable feature is the durability of the lacquer base coating. The entire production process involves over 120 steps, all done by hand across multiple studios. This illustration here on the right shows the basic steps in creating a lacquer ball. Urushi lacquer is a natural resin extracted from the sap of the urushi lacquer tree. This versatile organic coating has been used in Japan for over 9,000 years. The sap, as you can see in the image in the middle, has a beige color and hardens only in warm, humid conditions. And that is why Wajima's unique natural environment, surrounded by mountains and the sea, which provides the perfect humidity for lacquer making, has been an ideal environment for this craft. In addition, I should also point out that Wajima is very much in strategic location as a hub for sea transportation historically, which enabled local merchants to establish an efficient system for the distribution of their lacquerware to major cities such as Osaka and Kyoto during the Edo period. So Wajima Lacquerware's longevity, durability and resistance to wear, where does it come from? It comes from using a special local clay in its production process. Pieces of diatomaceous earth are dried and heated for several hours to remove moisture. After that, they're crushed into a fine powder and mixed with lacquer for the base coating. This powder, known as jinoko, has been used in Wajima lacquerware since the 17th century. Before applying the lacquer, artisans strengthen the weak spots on the wooden pieces by pasting on small pieces of hemp cloth. This step is called nunokise, or cloth pasting. These traditional techniques help Wajima lacquer artisans create products that last an exceptionally long time. The city of Wajima stands out from the other lacquer production centers in Japan because of its traditional approach to making lacquerware. As Simon already explained in his speech, instead of functioning as separate workshops, the entire city operates as one integrated studio. This system revolves around the nushiya, or lacquerer, who plays a central role in overseeing the production process. The nushiya manages a team of workshops that specializes in various stages of making, including woodworking, lacquer-based coating application, polishing, and surface decoration. Additionally, the nushiya acts also as a wholesaler dealer, handling orders and delivering finished products to customers. There are, of course, other craft production centers in Japan with a similar division of labor, but Wajima remains one of the largest of its kind in Japan, with over 1,000 shokunin, or artisans, involved in the local lacquer industry. The earthquake and recent record rains have disrupted this traditional production system, with many artisans evacuating due to the loss of their homes and studios. And finally, I'd like to highlight that Wajima is also an important place for the promotion and education of lacquer art. The Wajima Museum of Urushi Art, which opened in 1991, is the only museum dedicated to the art of lacquer in the world. Since January 1st, the museum has been closed, and we do not know when it can be opened to the public. The Ishikawa Prefectural Wajima Institute of Lacquer Arts was established in 1967 with the objective of fostering the next generation of makers. This is a prestigious training platform where students spend 3 years to master different stages of lacquer making, from woodworking, base lacquer coating to surface decoration, directly from holders of the important intangible cultural property, famously known as living national treasures in the field of lacquer. And notably, 3 of our 4 guest speakers today, Kamata-san, Shibayama-san, and Murose-san, are graduates of this institute. So this fact already underscores how essential this place is in cultivating skilled makers. So this brings to the end of my short, brief introduction to the today's event. But now let's move on to our speaker introduction. While my talk focused on Wajima's traditional division of labor, the city is also home to innovative lacquer artists. As we will hear from today's speakers, their creative process still relies on the support of skilled craftspeople, highlighting that individual artistic creation is closely intertwined with the traditional division of labor in Wajima. Our first speaker, Kamata Katsuji, was born in Tokyo in 1977. After graduating from the crafts course in the Department of Fine Arts, Tohoku University of Art and Design in Yamagata, Kamata-san joined the Wajima Institute of Lacquer Arts. He undertook further training under master urushi artist Akagi Akito in Wajima. Kamata-san became independent in 2006. He produces a range of vessels using kanshitsu dry lacquer technique. Dry lacquer is a traditional technique where objects are crafted from lacquer-soaked cloth or paper, enabling makers to create free-form shapes. In this example, we can really appreciate the unique form inspired by Wajima's natural environment. While Kamata-san is fully capable of completing the entire making process on his own, he also depends on the support of artisans in Wajima in order to produce high-quality works in large quantities. Our second speaker is Wakamiya Takashi, who was born in Wajima in 1964. Wakamiya-san entered the world of urushi lacquer at the age of 20, and now serves as the artistic director of the artisan collective known as Hikoju Makie. The picture here shows the members of Hikoju Makie who collaborate to create stunning works of art. In 2014, Wakamiya-san was appointed cultural envoy by Japan's Agency for Cultural Affairs, promoting lacquer culture in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. He's consistently engaged in research, development, and educational activities related to urushi lacquer techniques. Additionally, Wakamiya-san actively seeks to expand the market for lacquer and to promote it internationally. And what you're seeing here, all of these are works by Hikoju Makie. And it's really wonderful. There's always surprises inside. Next speaker is Shibayama Yoshinori, who was born in Kanazawa, Ishikawa Prefecture in 1975. After completing his studies at the Wajima Institute of Lacquer Arts, Shibayama-san apprenticed under living national treasure Nishi Katsuhiro in Wajima before becoming independent. Shibayama-san is based in Tsubata, a town in Ishikawa Prefecture, just half an hour from Kanazawa. As a chinkin artist, he has showcased his craft internationally, participating in exhibitions in countries such as Australia, UK, and the USA. He is also a member of the Wajima Lacquerware Youth Association. This picture is from one of the hands-on workshops the association organized for a local school. Chinkin is a surface decoration technique of Wajima lacquerware, which involves incising patterns on lacquer surfaces. The incisions are filled with lacquer and finished with gold leaf or powder, as you can see in this example. Shibayama-san can also manage the entire making process from woodworking to surface decoration on his own. However, again, he relies on the support of craftspeople, especially when creating more complex pieces or producing in large quantities. And the fourth speaker, our last speaker, is Murose Tomoya, who was born in Tokyo in 1982. After studying lacquer making techniques at the Wajima Institute of Lacquer Arts for 3 years, he returned to Tokyo to train under his father, living national treasure for makie lacquer, Murose Kazumi, learning about makie surface decoration techniques and also cultural property conservation and restoration. His grandfather was also a lacquer artist and was originally from Wajima, so he also has a family connection to Wajima. Currently, Murose-san is an active artist, a full member of the Japan Koge Association. This is one of the examples of wonderful work he makes. And he's also the director of the Mejiro Institute of Urushi Research and Restoration in Tokyo, where he actively promotes lacquer culture to a broad audience. And that includes young children. They often hold workshops for children as well. Like the other speakers, he is also fully capable of creating his own work independently, but his specialty being surface decoration. He also relies on skilled craftspeople for the other steps in the process as needed, all while managing his very busy schedule as the other director of the institute. So this brings to the end of speaker's introduction. So we will now move on to the conversation with the guest speakers. Okay, so now I would like to invite our first guest speaker, Kamata-san, who is joining us today directly from Wajima.
マイクとカメラの準備をお願いします、カメラさん。
よろしくお願いします。
Hey, so this is Kamata-san. Thank you very much for joining us today. So first question for Kamata-san. I understand that you have continued to live in Wajima since the earthquake. So I would like to ask, how is the current situation?
ありがとうございます、和島さん。震災後もずっとそのまま和島で生活されているということですけども、現状はいかがでしょうか。
うちは地震では幸いなことに住居も仕事場も被害が少なくて、そのまま住み続けることができました。
Fortunately, my home and workplace suffered minor damage in the earthquake, so we've been able to continue living there.
なので、生活をまず立て直して、仕事を早く再開させたいっていう気持ちで、まずはいっぱいでしたね。
So I really wanted to rebuild my life and I wanted to start working as soon as possible. That was my thought initially.
移住する気は全くなかったので、一時的に避難しても、その避難先ですることもないですし、それよりは門前に残って、片付けをしたり、仕事を再開する準備をしたりする方がいいと思いました。
And I had no intention to relocate. So although I could temporarily evacuate to a safe area, I thought there was nothing for me to do there. So I believe that it was better to stay in Monzen so that I can start cleaning up and prepare to restart my work.
でも家族もいますし、家族のために週末だけは金沢のホテルにで過ごして、で平日は門前で片付けなどを活動をするっていう生活を2ヶ月ぐらい送りました。
But for the sake of my family, I spent weekends at the hotel in Kanazawa while working in Monzen during the week, cleaning up and rebuilding the workshop during the week for about 2 months.
でも能登に住んでいた僕の弟子仲間っていうのが7世帯ぐらいいたんですけども、1人、2人、1人減り、2人減りして、結局、能登に残ったのは僕だけだったんですね。で、初めは本当に、OK。
Oh, okay.
すみません。
There were about 7 households of fellow artisans living in Noto, but as time went on, people left one by one until there was only one left. That was practically me.
だけど最初は僕自身が仕事を再開するっていうことで精一杯で、周りのことだったり、輪島の漆器業全体のことなんかは全く考えられませんでした。
But at first, I was so focused on restarting my work that I couldn't think about anything else or anyone else that includes the situation around me, other people, or the Wajima Lacquerware industry.
だけど、徐々に漆器関係者がいなくなったり、辞めていったりっていう中で、能登に残って漆を続けるってことに何か責任のようなものを感じるようになりました。
But as a number of lacquerware artisans leaving or quitting the job completely, I started to feel a sense of responsibility to continue working with lacquer.
今まで輪島の技術だったり、僕の技術だったりっていうのを残して伝えていこうっていう気はもう全くなかったんですけども、この10ヶ月、地震が起こってからの10ヶ月で、そこの考え方が大きく変わりました。
Until now, I'd never considered, I really didn't think much about preservation or even passing on my techniques or Wajima's techniques at all. But in these past 10 months since the earthquake, my view has changed completely.
その一環として、休校になって、地震以来休校になってた、輪島漆芸研修所の生徒が、何ヶ月も漆に触らない状態でいるっていうのは、良くないことだなと思って、で、休みの間、うちで働いてもらうことにしました。
And as a starter, I thought about the situation of the students at Wajima Institute of Lacquer Arts. They weren't able to work with lacquer for months and months because of the suspension of the classes. We couldn't open the school. So I thought that just wasn't good for them. So I decided to have one of them work for me at my place during this time.
でもその子たちの住む家も用意しなければならなかったので、でも、周りに借りられる家なんかは全くなかったので、いろいろ考えた結果、近くにあった空き別荘を1棟購入して、で、そこに住んで通ってもらうことにしました。
First of all, I needed to find a place for them to live. But there was no houses, flats to rent. So I just tried to look around and found a place, a vacant holiday home near my place for them to stay.
でそこから3ヶ月ぐらい、やっと仕事できる環境が整って、で、仕事も回り始めて、このまま順調にいきそうだなと思った矢先に、能登の豪雨が、来ました。
So that they can commute to my workshop from the house. That was a great idea. And also I got the environment set up and everything was starting to work smoothly. So I thought then the heavy rain hit the area.
So we saw the pictures of the building that you bought for artisans, which was nearly destroyed because of the landslide after heavy rains, and it was certainly shocking. And you also mentioned that your fellow artists all left Wajima now. So I wanted to ask next question, are you currently able to keep making new work in Wajima?
建物の写真、先ほどスライドで見せていただきましたけども、雨や地滑りで本当に家が大変なことになってびっくりしましたけども、先ほど輪島から職人さんがいなくなったという話でしたよね。その現在作品の制作というのは継続できているんでしょうか。
雨で、買ったばかりの別荘の裏山が崩れて、で、その崖側の別荘の壁に、そこに生えてた木が突き刺さったんですね。それで、もう壁も崩れちゃったので、当然そこに住むことはできなくなりました。
Because of the heavy rain, the hillside behind the newly purchased the holiday home collapsed, and the tree crashed into the building, and the wall crumbled completely. So it just wasn't habitable.
で、そこに住んでたスタッフも、通えなくなってしまって、仕事は続けられなくなってしまいました。
So my staff could no longer come to work, so we couldn't carry on.
で、そのスタッフの子もいないし、職人さんもいないっていう中で、やっぱり数をたくさん作る見込みが立たなくなってしまったので、とても悔しい決断ではあったんですけど、しばらく展覧会を中止するっていう決断をしました。
So there was no staff or artisans to work with. I had to make a very frustrating decision to cancel the planned exhibitions, just because we lost ability to produce any sort of works.
そして地震と豪雨と2度災害に見舞われたんですけども、今も移住する気はありません。
So we had 2 disasters this year, but I'm not even thinking of moving.
最初は責任感からだったんですけど、今は自分の作品制作において、能登の海だとか、能登の空気だとか、能登の自然、能登の食べ物はその作品制作にとって欠かせないものだと思っています。
At first, it was out of a sense of responsibility, as I said earlier. But now I can see that the sea, the air, and the food of Noto are essential to my creative process.
でここ能登に住んでるからこそ生まれる形っていうのもあると思っています。
I believe that I can create works here and only here, nowhere else.
特にうねりシリーズとかはその影響が強いと思っています。
I think that's especially true for my Uneri series.
Just to explain, the Uneri series is the series of works that he mentioned. Is not sure if you remember, there was one black lacquer the dish in this curvy shape that I showed in earlier slide. So that is one of the example from the series, and it's very moving to hear Kamata-san really saying that he has no intention to move. So thank you, Kamata-san, for joining. We will come back to you later. Now let's move
ありがとうござい
on.
ます。
ありがとうございます。
So now I'd like to invite Wakamiya-san on the screen.
では若宮さん、画面の方お願いします。オンにしてください。
はい。お願いいたします。
よろしくお願いします。
はい。
So, Wakamiya-san, I know that you moved from Wajima to Kanazawa after the earthquake, and that you continue to work with the members of Hikoju Makie who are based in different locations, but that you still function as a team. So, I wanted to ask, what made you to decide to move from Wajima?
震災以降、輪島から金沢に移住されて、彦島木への職人さんとチームとして一緒に制作活動を続けていらっしゃるということですけども、どのような経緯で移住を決断されたんでしょうか。
はい。まずは、水道、下水が使えないっていうことで、まだ工房はなんとかなるんですけれど、生活ができないっていうことで、移住しました。そして、うちは20人くらいのチームで仕事をしてますけれど、ほとんどの職人さんの家がなくなってしまったので、輪島にはいられないということで移住しました。
The main reason of my relocation is the water supply. The workshops are fine, but practically we just couldn't live there. And my team consists of 20 people, but everyone lost their homes. So again, it just was not possible to stay there and work.
And I've also heard that there was considerable damage from the heavy rains in September.
9月の豪雨でも大きな被害があったということですけども、
はい。私の家自体の被害としては、豪雨の方がひどかったです。
yeah, my house was really destroyed by the rain.
全部の床も壁も、床上浸水ですので、めくって修理をしなきゃいけないっていうことで、住める状態ではないですね。
The water came up above my floor, so you really have to take everything apart, walls and floors. So it's just not possible to live in that building.
And I remember you told me that also the studio workshop building in Wajima also had the severe damage. And would you tell us a little bit about the, I think you told me that your important reference books for the lacquer making, for example, were heavily damaged, and you had to throw them away, some of them, because you just couldn't save them after they were soaked in mud water.
工房の方、スタジオの方もすごく洪水でダメージを受けて、特に重要な参考資料になるような本も水の被害を受けたというふうにお伺いしてます。もう全然もうひどい状態で捨てなければいけない本もあったというふうにお伺いしていますけども。
はい。1メートル近く床上来ましたもんですから、資料や本や、いろんな、在庫も捨てることになりました。
Yes, there was about a meter deep water inside the house and the workshop. So yeah, very really precious materials, reference books, and my works were soaked and damaged completely.
And are your team currently able to keep making new work? Could you tell us a little bit how you are working as a team?
チームとしての作品の制作についてお伺いしたいんですけども、現在は活動の作品の制作というのは継続できているんでしょうか。どのように行っているんでしょうか。
はい。うちの工房の中では、6月くらいからほんの少しずつ、作品制作ができるようになりました。
My team started working again in June this year.
しかし、その他の職人さんで、いまだにできない方もいらっしゃいます。
But there are other artisans who are not able to work still.
And are you planning to continue your activities with premise of returning to Wajima in the future? Or I do realize it's a difficult question to answer soon after such terrible flooding. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you see the future of your own studio.
今後将来的に輪島に戻る前提で活動をされてるんでしょうか。洪水の被害も今お話伺ったところ、すごく答えるのは難しいとは思うんですけども、将来の展望としてどのように考えていらっしゃるでしょうか。
はい。全く輪島に帰れるかどうか考えられる状況ではないですね。まあ、それよりも、作品を作る環境の方が重要と思うので、輪島でもしなくてもよければ、それでもいいと思っています。
At the moment, I can't really think of future. I can't even think of whether we are going back to Wajima or not. But nowadays, I really think what's important for us is creating an environment for us to make our works. So I have begun to think that, well, probably it just doesn't have to be Wajima.
Thank you, Wakamiya-san. Yes, I can really see that continuing to create, regardless of location, is the only pathway forward in such situation. I can see that from your words. Thank you. I will come back to you later.
ありがとうございます。場所に関わらず作品の制作を継続するということが大切ということはとてもよくわかりました。お話ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございました。
So now I'd like to invite Shibayama-san on the screen. Shibayama-san, please.
柴山さん、画面の方の準備をお願いします。
よろしくお願いします。
So I heard that since the earthquake, you have given lectures across Japan about the damage in Wajima. Could you please share with us the background of how you started these activities, raising awareness of the disaster?
震災以降、全国で被害状況について、輪島の被害状況について講演をされているというようなことですけれども、その活動を始められた経緯についてですね、お話しいただけますでしょうか。
そうですね。普段から輪島塗の職人さんと交流が多い中で、今回多数の職人さんが被災されて、動けない状況である中、被害が少なかった自分が、職人のように、直接お客さんとつながらない方たちの声をいろんな方に発信することを始めました。
So I've worked closely with the lacquer artisans in Wajima, and I've seen so many people got affected and they're not able to work because of the disaster. So I thought I can use my voice here to connect the voices of these people and then share the experiences. Like say the craftspeople, they don't have directly connect with the customers, but they need support. So I can be the bridge between these people.
Thank you. It has been almost a year since the earthquake, but are there, I know that you work closely with craftspeople. Are there many artisans who have left Wajima around you or quit their jobs due to the heavy rains? Or can you talk a little bit about how you see the community of artisans in Wajima, in your environment?
震災から1年近くなりますけども、親しい職人さんとの交流も多いということですよね。でやはりこの中で豪雨の影響、それから地震など豪雨の影響で輪島を離れたりとか辞めてしまう人っていうのは多いものなんでしょうか。実際コミュニティの変化ということについてもお話をいただけると。
そうですね。僕の印象ではですね、輪島に残って頑張っている方が多いと思うんですが、豪雨でやっぱり離れてしまっている方も多くなっていると聞いております。で、主屋さんが存在してこそ仕事が成り立っていることもあり、復興支援に向けて職人さん自身が声を上げられたり、僕が存在することを難しいさがあると感じています。
From my impression, everybody is trying their best, but many people are actually leaving the area. And also the work depends on the existence of nushi at the lacquerers. So I feel it may be difficult for the craftspeople to raise their voices for support or even carrying on working there.
Thank you. It's a really important point that these artisans do not really have a voice for their work. That's an important thing to highlight, I think. I also wanted to ask Shibayama-san, what kind of activities does the Wajima Lacquerware Youth Association engage in?
でこの職人さんの声を届けるというのは本当に重要なことだと思います。ありがとうございます。この輪島漆器青年会というの活動について少しお話しいただけるでしょうか。
はい。 輪島式青年会は、45歳以下の、資金従事している人たちの会なんですけども、震災以前はですね、教育活動、ワークショップとか、とかで、学校など、有志体験などを開催しておりました。で、震災以降はですね、輪島式青年会にいただいた義援金をですね、クラファンや募金等できない、自分たちの周りの職人たちの方々に、配ったりして、今年の2月にはですね、新宿の伊勢丹で、震災を乗り越えた在庫の展示販売などを開催させていただきました。
ごめんなさい、何歳っておっしゃいました、年齢。
45歳
はい。
なんですけども、おばあもいます。
Okay, youth association. People under 45 years old is the association. Before the earthquake, we focused on the educational activities, holding hands-on lacquer workshop in schools. But after the disaster, we started activities to distribute donations received by the association to the craftspeople who are not able to start crowdfunding themselves or doing fundraising. And in February, we held an exhibition to sell the stock we had, and that survived the disaster at Isetan Shinjuku in Tokyo.
Thank you. And I really admire the work that your association does. I think it's very important. And lastly, what kind of support is most needed by local artisans in Wajima right now, in your opinion?
ありがとうございます。青年会の活動は本当素晴らしく重要なことだと思います。じゃあ、ちょっと質問が変わりますけども、現在職人さんが最も必要とされている支援というのはどのようなものだとお感じですか？
そうですね、仕事をする場所だと思います。さっきも言われた通り、仮設工房が立ち始めまして、で、豪雨があって、やはり仕事をする場所がなくなるということが多くなってまして、ただ、元より数が少なかったんですけども、そういう災害で、さらに、仕事ができないようになって時間がかかっているっていうところがある。
Well, place to work, really. And yeah, as you pointed out, while temporary workshops are being built, there are still too few, and also due to the rain, as you said, it's just taking so long and much longer to resume work for everyone. So place to work is the essential thing.
Thank you, Shibayama-san. I'll come back to you later.
ありがとうございました。じゃあまたでお願いします。
Okay, now I'd like to invite the last speaker, Murose Tomoya. Murose-san, お願いします。
では最後のスピーカーで室瀬さんお願いします。
よろしくお願いします。
Murose-san, you live and work in Tokyo, but Wajima is a place with a deep connection for you. So I wanted to hear from you actually as the last speaker, because I know that with your deep connection to Wajima, but you in a way, physically you are an outsider. And I wanted to ask how you are seeing the current situation.
現在室瀬さんは東京にお住まいということですけれども、輪島とのつながりとても大きいわけですよね。で最後のスピーカーとして、またこの外に住んでいるものとして現在の状況についてどのようにご覧になっているかをお話しいただけますでしょうか。
はい。私の祖父は、輪島の出身でして、今でも私の親戚が輪島に住んでいます。
My grandfather was born in Wajima, and I've got relatives living there still.
そして私自身も、漆の基礎的な技術を輪島で勉強させていただきました。
And I learned the basics of lacquer art, urushi arts in Wajima.
大学を卒業して輪島に行った時に、現地で住んでいらっしゃる方々のほとんどが何かしか漆に関係していたり、ご親戚が漆のお仕事をされていたりという、そういった環境に非常に驚いたことを覚えています。
And after graduating the university, I visited Wajima, and I remember I was so surprised to see people living there, either working in the industry or families of lacquer artists, and I was really surprised to see that.
輪島は日本の、漆工芸にとって非常に重要な場所だと思いますし、私にとってもとても大切な場所です。
So Wajima is a very important place for the lacquerware industry in Japan, and also it is a very important place for me personally.
この度の震災で、まだ皆さんこれからの復興の予測が立たないという中で、非常にご苦労されている様子を見ていて、心が痛んでいます。
So after two disasters in the area, nobody can know what's going to happen in the future. And I witnessed the situation. It just is painful to see these people suffering.
私の仲間がボランティア団体を組織してくれまして、震災後何度か水害の後もですけれども、輪島に行って片付けのお手伝いをしました。
And my mates formed a volunteer team of volunteers. And after the heavy rain, we all went to help clearing up the area.
私自身は東京という離れた場所に身を置いている立場ですので、輪島塗をどうするとか、産地としての輪島をどうしていくっていう内側からの活動には、もしかしたら直接的には関われないかなとは思うんですが、外にいる立場の人間として、どのように輪島の役に立つことができるかということを、考えています。
I live in Tokyo, so I can't directly say anything about what to do for the industry, the Wajima lacquer industry. But although I live on the outside in Tokyo, I constantly think about what I can do to help the area, help the people living in Wajima.
はい。
Thank you, Murose-san. This is going to be the last question, but you are the director of the Mejiro Urushi Institute of Research and Restoration, and you have actively promoted the art of lacquer, not only in Japan, but also in the UK and other countries. In terms of course, for your work, but also in terms of creating jobs to support artisans in Wajima, what do you see as the potential for promoting lacquerware outside Japan?
で最後の質問になりますけれども、目白漆学者のディレクターとしてですね、今後について日本だけではなくてイギリスを含め諸外国に向けて漆の作品を展示してプロモーションしていくということに関しての可能性についてお伺いしたいと思います。もちろんこれが仕事を作ることにつながるとかサポートしていくことにつながるとは思うんですけれども。
はい。漆という素材はですね、天然素材でありながら非常に長く使えますし、そういう意味で自然の循環の健全性を保つことができるような非常に魅力的な素材だと思っています。
So lacquer, urushi is a natural material and it's really durable. And it's just not pleasing to the eyes, but it's part of this circular environment, circular production.
そして触ったり使用したりする質感にもとても気持ちいいものがありますし、見た目にも人を引きつける魅力があると、そういう意味でこれからの時代に多くの人たちに、喜ばれるような要素を持っているんじゃないかなというふうに思っています。
So I believe the lacquerware has the potential because it just feels good once you feel it. It's just not looking pretty. It's not just a pretty face. It feels really good, and also because of the material, the natural material, that would appeal to the younger generation. And because of durability, people can enjoy it for a long time. So I think it suits this current time.
まあ、アジアで生まれた文化としての漆工芸ではあるんですが、これからそのもっと世界の多くの人たちに楽しんでいただける文化になって、よりものづくりが活性化して、それが結果的に文化の継承につながっていったらいいなというふうに思っています。
So this is part of an Asian culture, but I believe this should spread to the world so that people can enjoy more everywhere in the world, and that would activate the lacquerware industry in the area and all over the world. And I think it would be my pleasure and honor to be a part of passing the culture on to the next generation.
Thank you, Murose-san. Your comment made me think that with the popularity of Japanese cuisine in the world, of course, I really wonder if there are ways to introduce the real incredible lacquerware, tableware, to restaurants outside Japan as well. And as Murose-san mentions, it's really a tactile art. So yes, that's what I was wondering. But I'd like to now invite back 3 other speakers for the Q&A session.
ありがとうございました。特に今世界的に日本食がポピュラーになってきているところで、この本物のですね、漆、漆器を使った食器というのもどんどんこちらでも取り入れられていくといいなというふうに思います。とても重要な活動だと思います。室瀬さんの言った通り、素晴らしいアートだと思います。ではここでですね、全員に画面に戻っていただいて、お客様集まっていただいた方の Q&A に移りたいと思います。
Thank you very much. So thank you to all of our speakers in Japan for sharing such valuable insights. Thank you to Yamada-san for her excellent moderation and to Kozuya-san for the excellent interpretation. So we'll now open the floor to questions from our audience. So please feel free to raise your hand and we can bring a microphone over to you. And for those of you joining online, we'll also be accepting questions. So please type your questions in the chat and we'll address them as many as we can. So I think there was a question there in the front row. So we'll just bring a microphone over to you so everybody can hear you at home. It should be, shall we? Does it need to be switched on? We try speaking? Thank you.
Hello.
Thank
Hi.
you.
Yeah, I think the second speaker said because of the flood, he's lost a lot or almost all of his rare reference work. Is there an archive somewhere with copies of the reference work, or are they unique? Or what about other artisans?
貴重な参考書籍とかがなくなった水没してしまったという話がありましたけれども、どこかにアーカイブ的なものがあってコピーがあったりとかっていうのはないんでしょうか。それとももう全てこれはもうなくなったらなくなってしまったものとして、その情報としても手に入らないものなんでしょうか。
この質問、若宮さんもしよろしければ、今回水没してしまった資料ですとか、もう手に入らないものがあるかっていうようなこともしお願いできたら。
はい。アーカイブはありません。特に、地域の、民話みたいなお話を集めて作品制作に使っていましたので、そもそも古い手書きの文章でした。
Yeah, the simple answer is no. Especially, we actually use books of folklores in the area, like really, really, really ancient books written by hands. So once they're gone, they're gone.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions here in the room? I think there's, yes, so, just at the back. One moment, we'll just bring the microphone over to you.
Thank you very much for such an interesting talk, and I'm so sorry that this happened to you. I was wondering about the raw materials that you use for your lacquer. is it still easy to get the wood and also the lacquer to make the material, the things you make?
Sorry, can you speak up? Okay.
漆と素材についての質問なんですけど、皆さんの本当にこうした災害があって本当にお話を聞いてショックですということだったんですけれども、木材であったりだとか漆ですね、今入手することっていうのは問題なくできているのですかっていう質問です。どなたかもし鎌田さんいかがでしょう。
漆、
はい。
はい。漆は、僕の場合、中国産の漆を福井県の業者から買っているので、今のところ問題はないです。で、それ、どうぞ。いいですか。生地に関しては、やっぱり被害を受けてる生地屋さんもいらっしゃるので、一部手に入らないものもあります。
So as for urushi, the lacquer, I am buying from this place in Fukui, imported from China. So urushi is fine, but for the woods, it's very difficult because of the damage.
And I should perhaps just add that because I didn't really, have time to go into details of where, the urushi sub comes from in my talk, because that was not really focus of today's event. But in Japan's lacquer production, 97% of the lacquer sub is imported from China today. Only 3% is domestically produced.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions in the room? Oh, quite a few. Shall we go to just over there next to the pillar?
本当に素晴らしいお話ありがとうございます。胸が痛みます。で、すごくインプロンプチュな質問で申し訳ないんですけれども、今97% の漆、中国から輸入なさってるっていうことですけど、これはどうしてなんですか？日本ではもう作れなくなってるんでしょうか？
So 90% of urushi lacquer import from China, you just said. Why is that? Is it because there's no production system in Japan, or why is it only?
I can answer, but I wonder also, since we have Murose-san here, who actually grows lacquer trees, because he works for the Mejiro Urushi Institute that I mentioned, which promotes the urushi culture. So I wonder if Murose-san sort of
私はこれお答えしてもいいんですけども、室瀬さんの方が実際の漆の生産をされて、作って育ててらっしゃるということなので、お答えしていただいてよろしいでしょうか。
はい。ちょっとお答えするの難しいところはあるんですが、日本で国内で生産される漆の量というのが、長い歴史の中で少なくなってきたというところはあると思います。輸入する漆を使用してきた歴史もそれなりに長いものがあると思うので、近年になってそれが割合がだんだん増えてきたというかのは、やっぱりその日本国内で生産する漆の量が少なくなってきたからだと思うんですけれども、やはり非常にその木を育てて漆を取るのに手間がかかりますし、品質はすごく高いんですが、日本国産の漆自体は価格も高くなるので、そういった意味で最近では中国産が使用される割合が多いという現状があるんじゃないかなと思います。
It's very difficult and it's very complicated. So over the years, the production of lacquer in Japan decreased. But so that means that the history of import is quite long now. As we explained that we've got a lot of imports from China, but it's just genuinely because the production amount the reduction of the production is the main reason. It is a long process to produce lacquer. You have to grow the trees, you have to extract the lacquer. The Japanese lacquer quality is really high, but it is expensive. So as I said, it's very complicated. And but yeah, we are relying on the import from China recently.
Thank you. And I will just going to go to, before we go back to the room, we just have one question on Zoom from an online attendee, Louise on Zoom, who's asked, are there ways we can help in the UK? For example, is there existing stock for which we could arrange a sale here to benefit the artisans? And she's mentioned that a studio in Japan organized a sale of slightly imperfect lacquer wares that had gotten wet, for example.
ズームの方からの質問なんですけども、イギリスの方で何かこうヘルプできることはありませんかって、先ほどお話の中で伊勢丹でストックを売ったというようなこともありましたけども、そのような活動をこちらですることっていうのをこう展望として考えていらっしゃいますか？
柴山さん、いかがでしょうか。在庫を販売したというようなことをお聞きしてましたけれども、今後、今の質問では傷があるようなものでも、例えばそれをイギリスで販売会をするとか、何かそういった何らかのイギリスで販売を通してお手伝いができないかという質問。
はい。そうですね。本当に機会があれば、行って、販売できるようであれば、輪島の、青年会メンバー以外にもまだいっぱいいらっしゃるので、そういうところ声かけて、そういう機会があれば、ぜひ、やってみたいと思っています。
Yeah, definitely. If there's an opportunity, we are very, very keen. So especially with the youth association in Wajima, we are very much interested in exploring avenue to promote and for the support of the area. So yes, if there's a way.
Thank you. And I think we'll just take one last question from the front row. Yeah.
Thank you for an insight into Japanese lacquer. I'm interested to know that I've seen lacquer made in China, in India, in Korea. Was there any influence from each of those countries? And is it the lacquer that is made in Japan unique to Japan?
非常に詳しい話ありがとうございます。で、個人的にインドとか中国とか韓国とかの漆の作品というのも自分触れてきてるんですけども、それらの影響というのは日本の漆の工芸にあるんでしょうか。それからその日本の漆工芸のその独自性とかそのユニークな部分っていうのはどういうところが他のところと比べてあるんでしょ
若宮さん、影響っていう意味では漆そのものご自身でも古いものも研究されてると思うんですけれども、日本のその漆文化の独自性という意味では素材というよりも制作としてですね、歴史的なものについてもし何かお言葉があれば。
はい。東南アジアの漆の影響は受けてないとは言えないと思います。しかし、それを日本人らしく、日本風に、再度再構成して、日本の漆は、漆器は作られていると思います。
No, we do not deny influence from the Southeast Asia, but the Japanese lacquerware are practically Japanese. And so taking these influences, I think over the years, we reimagined and reconstructed, and using the influence, we created unique Japanese lacquerware.
Thank you very much. So that's sadly all we have time for today's event. But I'd just like to say on behalf of Japan House London, thank you once again to Simon Pilling and Asian Art in London, to Yamada Masami, and of course to our 4 distinguished speakers joining us from Japan, Kamata Katsuji, Wakamiya Takashi, Shibayama Yoshinori, and Murose Tomoya. Thank you very much.
ました。
And special thanks also to our interpreter, Etsuden Kozue. And if you'd like to revisit today's talk, a recording of the event will be archived on Japan House's YouTube channel, so please do take a look. And following today's event, we will send a feedback questionnaire form by email, and we'd be very grateful if you could fill us in with your comments so we can continue to hold these events and improve them. And please also do explore the ongoing Asian Art in London program, which runs until 8th November and offers a range of events, gallery tours, and exhibitions across the city. And while you're in Japan House, please do pay a visit to our shop, where you can see a selection of bowls and vessels by makers in Ishikawa and also from working in Wajima. And before you go, a quick look at a couple of other programs at Japan House. Sorry. Slightly disconcerting echo. Just finished. Okay. So next Wednesday, we will explore lacquerware from Toyama Prefecture near Ishikawa Prefecture with a talk and demonstration by a craftsperson specializing in raden, mother of pearl inlay. And if you haven't already, please do pay a visit to our current free gallery exhibition, Looks Delicious, which explores Japan's food replica culture and features replicas of regional dishes from 47 of its prefectures, including Ishikawa, home to Wajima. So that's all for today. But thank you once again to our excellent panel of experts and craftspeople. And thank you all for joining. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.